Kandahar Province, 2002. I remember the briefing like it was yesterday. Our team, 8 Special Forces operators, was tasked with tracking Taliban movement through a remote mountain pass near the Pakistani border. Standard recon. Get in, observe, report back. Nothing we hadn't done a dozen times before. What they didn't tell us in that briefing was that 2 other patrols had gone dark in that same valley over the past month. We found that out later. The insertion went smooth. We hiked in under cover of darkness, full kit, night vision, the works. The terrain was brutal. Jagged rock formations, narrow trails, altitude that made your lungs burn with every breath. But we were used to it. Afghanistan had a way of breaking you in slowly. At first, everything felt normal. Radio checks were clean, weather held. We established our observation point on a ridge overlooking the valley by 0400 hours. From there, we could see for miles. Scattered villages, old Soviet-era roads, caves dotting the mountainside like open wounds. That's when Rodriguez noticed it. "Sarge, you seeing this?" He was scanning the valley floor with thermal imaging. I moved up beside him and looked through my own scope. There were no heat signatures. Nothing. Now, that might not sound strange to you, but out there, in those mountains, you always pick up something. Goats, wild dogs, foxes. The cold-blooded stuff blends in, sure, but mammals? They glow like beacons on thermal. The valley was empty. Completely empty. Like everything with a heartbeat had just left. "Equipment malfunction?" I asked. Rodriguez shook his head. "Ran diagnostics twice. It's working fine." For a second, I thought maybe we'd just picked a dead zone. It happens. But something about it didn't sit right with me. The silence was wrong. Not peaceful. Absent. Like the mountains themselves were holding their breath. We stayed put. Watched. Waited. As the sun started to rise, casting long shadows across the valley, I noticed something else. The villages were abandoned. Not destroyed. Not burned. Just empty. Doors hung open. Prayer flags hung limp in the still air. But no people. No animals. No movement at all. "What the hell happened here?" Miller whispered beside me. I didn't have an answer. By mid-morning, command came through on the radio asking for our initial report. I told them what we were seeing, or rather what we weren't seeing. There was a long pause on their end before they responded. "Hold position. Continue observation." That was it. No explanation, no recall. Just hold position. Looking back, I think they already knew something was off about that valley. They just needed us to confirm it. The day dragged on. We rotated watch, ate our MREs in silence, kept our eyes on those empty villages below. The sun was brutal. No cloud cover, no shade. Just relentless heat bouncing off the rocks. But as afternoon turned to evening, the temperature dropped fast. That's how it is in the mountains. Extreme in every direction. That's when we heard it. A sound. Low. Resonant. Almost like throat singing, but deeper. It echoed through the valley, bouncing off the rock walls so you couldn't tell where it was coming from. It lasted maybe 10 seconds, and stopped. We all froze. "Tell me you guys heard that," Jackson said, his voice tight. We'd all heard it. Every single one of us. I grabbed the radio. "Overwatch, this is Sierra 3. We have unidentified audio contact in the valley. Request clarification on local tribal activity." The response came back clipped. "No known activity in your sector. Continue observation." The sound came again an hour later, closer this time. And with it came a smell. thick, musky, like wet animal and something else. Something rotten. Davis was on watch. He'd been scanning the valley floor when he suddenly went rigid. "Movement," he hissed, "southwest near the cave line." I moved up fast, pressing my eye to the scope. There was something down there. At first, I thought it was a person. The shape was humanoid. 2 legs, 2 arms, upright posture. But the proportions were wrong. Too tall. Maybe 8, 9 feet? The way it moved was wrong too. Smooth. Deliberate. Like it was gliding across the terrain instead of walking. "You getting this on thermal?" I asked Rodriguez. He was already on it, but his face had gone pale. "Negative heat signature, Sarge. It's cold. Same temperature as the rocks." That's impossible. Anything living generates heat. Mammals, reptiles when they're active, even insects if you're close enough. But this thing, it registered as cold stone. I don't know why, but I felt my hand tighten on my rifle. The figure stopped near one of the cave entrances and seemed to look up, directly at our position. We were 500 meters away, elevated, camouflaged. There was no way it should have been able to see us. But it stood there, motionless, staring in our direction for what felt like an eternity. Then it stepped backward into the cave and disappeared. "What the fuck was that?" Miller breathed. I didn't answer. I didn't know how to. Silence. We reported it to command, described what we'd seen, the size, the movement, the thermal anomaly. There was a longer pause this time before they responded. "Maintain position until extract. Do not engage. Repeat, do not engage." Do not engage. That order stuck with me. Not investigate, not pursue, just stay away from it. Night fell fast after that. We went full blackout. No lights, no noise, weapons ready. The valley below disappeared into shadow, and that sound came back. Over and over. That low, resonant drone echoing through the mountains like a heartbeat. And then, maybe around 200 hours, we heard footsteps. Not boots, not paws, something else. Heavy, deliberate, moving along the ridge below our position. We couldn't see it. Clouds had rolled in, blocking the moon, but we could hear it. Hear the rocks shifting under its weight. Hear its breathing. Deep, slow. It circled our position for nearly an hour. Never came up the slope. Never tried to close the distance. Just circled, like it was testing us or marking us. Jackson was shaking. Davis had his finger on the trigger so tight I thought he'd snap it. But we held. We didn't fire. We didn't move. Silence. Eventually, the sound faded, the footsteps stopped, and the valley went silent again. Extract came at dawn. 2 Blackhawks, in and out, fast. We didn't ask questions. We just climbed aboard and left that place behind. When we got back to base, they debriefed us separately, one by one. Asked the same questions over and over. What did we see? What did we hear? Were we sure it wasn't insurgents? Were we sure it wasn't equipment failure? I told them the truth. I don't think they believed me. A week later, I heard that valley was designated a no-fly zone. Patrols were rerouted around it. The official reason was geological instability. But I knew better. I still think about that night sometimes. About the sound, about the figure moving through the valley, about the way it looked up at us. And I think about those abandoned villages, those empty caves. Whatever lived in those mountains didn't want company, and we were smart enough not to give it any. But I can't shake the feeling that it's still out there, waiting, watching, in the shroud of night, where no heat signatures glow, where the mountains hold their breath, and where some things are better left unseen. I've heard a lot of stories like this over the years. Soldiers who came back from remote places with memories that don't quite fit into the official reports. Experiences that blur the line between what they saw and what they felt. The truth is, war does something to perception. Sleep deprivation, isolation, adrenaline, these things change how we process the world around us. Our brains fill in gaps. They create patterns where none exist. They turn shadows into threats, because in those environments, hesitation gets you killed. But that doesn't make the experience any less real to the person who lived it.